We're spending a lot of our time covering this midterm, not about the races themselves, but about what they say about President Trump. Former President Trump is in endorsements. He may be in trouble in Georgia. He was out campaigning for J.D. Vance for the Senate race up in Ohio. In the meantime, we just had a headline cross the Bloomberg that apparently Mr. Trump has been held in contempt of court for failing to respond to subpoenas in a New York State probe up here. So are the Trump, is it too early to call it quits on the Trump endorsements, Rick?
Absolutely not. In fact, I think everybody ought to just buckle their seatbelt, because May's the month where a lot of these Trump endorsements are going to land in the ballot box, and we're going to find out whether or not his endorsement makes sense. I mean, J.D. Vance, there's no question his race is a different race now that he's got the Trump endorsement. He may be leading substantially by some polls that are coming out just this weekend. And in Georgia, for instance, Herschel Walker, looks like he's going to run away with the nomination, and that is a complete invention of Donald Trump. So we're going to see the scorecard for the first time on Trump endorsements in May, and it ought to be very interesting and frankly telling for a future presidential run by the former president potentially.
So Jeanne, I'm not sure he's going to endorse him for Speaker of the House if the Republicans win, but certainly President Trump has said he's not going to stand in the way of Mr. McCarthy. Has he passed that danger? Is there a chance of his being House Speaker if, in fact, the Republicans win? Because last week when we were talking, he had that bad tape that had come out.
For Kevin McCarthy, it was a very bad week in which he was caught, lying essentially about what he had said, and then the tape came out. I thought it was fascinating that the former President Donald Trump told the Wall Street Journal over the weekend, when he was asked whether he would support McCarthy for Speaker if Republicans take the House, he was, sort of non-committal, as you can imagine. And, McCarthy really needs Trump's support if he is going to hold that caucus together. My guess is that this tape is not going to matter in 8 months when they vote for Speaker, but I do think it was a very bad week for Kevin McCarthy, because it shows that he's saying one thing in private and one thing in public. I was reminded of, John Kerry windsurfing in the 24 campaign, that ad. That's a little bit of what we're seeing about Kevin McCarthy before he even has a chance to run for Speaker, and it doesn't bode well for him. And of course, Speaker is going to be a very tough job with this very big raucous caucus he would have to lead if he's elected.
Rick, is there a danger of the Republicans measuring the drapes a little too soon for their majority in the House? We now have Patrick McHenry saying, okay, I don't want to be the whip. I don't want to be the majority whip. I'm happy to run the Finance Committee. Is there a risk here that they're getting a little ahead of themselves?
Well, I actually think the Patrick McHenry decision to not run for whip is an interesting one, because he was kind of a shoo-in for that. But maybe it's because of all the problems that are happening in that caucus, as Jeanne said. I do think that Republicans still continue to be in a very favorable position. I kind of take my lead from Elizabeth Warren, which I never thought I'd breathe a day that I would say that. But she just made a round on the Sunday shows saying, basically, Democrats are going to lose. We're in really bad shape, and we got to do something about this. So if Elizabeth Warren says it's so, it must be so.